This is the review video of how to make a double crust pie pastry. So again, we're going to be making apple pie. You need a bottom layer crust, and I'm going to show you how to do a lattice. So first year, I think you guys learned how to do it by hand. We're going to use the food processor today. So your food processor should come with different blades. The blade you want is actually a plastic blade, okay? If you don't have a food processor and you're going to do this by hand, remember to either use a pastry cutter or a fork. So the first thing we want to do is add our dry ingredients. Let me just get a spoon here. Our dry ingredients into here. So this is 3 cups of flour that has been sifted. So if you can sift it, makes it a little lighter. It's going to get whizzed around pretty good in here anyways. All right, so flour, 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, and 1 tablespoon of sugar. And what we're going to do is put the lid on and just give it a couple of spins. So that's just to make sure the sugar and the flour get mixed in. Okay, now you have a 1/2 cup of shortening and a 1/2 cup of butter. These should both be really nice and cold. And even the flour and the salt and sugar cannot honestly all go in the refrigerator. So what you want to do now is you want to cut up the butter into small little pieces and then go ahead and put them, they're like the size of sugar cubes, so like 1/4-inch cubes, into the flour and the shortening. We'll do the same. The shortening, remember, you want to pack it. And then what I did is I actually just took my dry measuring cup. Remember, solids get measured in dry. And I just stuck it into the freezer. So again, now I can just kind of cut little pieces out and put it right into the mixture. Okay. Now remember, vegetable shortening is what's going to make that dough really flaky, while the butter, which is a fat, does also add the flavor. So because we cook it at a high enough temperature, that vegetable shortening kind of helps fry everything. All right, lid on. The only thing we have left is our ice water, and I went ahead and put the apple cider in there as well. So I'm going to put the lid on, and I'm going to pulse this about 10 to 15 times. I don't know if you guys can see down on that side. Let me see if I'm able to turn that at an angle. Maybe I will a little bit. All right, pulse it. I pulsed it 15 times, and what you're looking for is that you can barely see your little chunks of butter and your shortening, and I still see them in there, but it's not over mixed. I still can see a nice amount of that butter. Okay, now you should have the plunger part. You can take it out. Now some of them even have another part, so maybe you can do that. That way it's just the hole down the bottom. But that, let me show you. Okay, so this part goes back in, this part comes out, depending on how your mixer set. That way you can put the water in here, but all the flour will stay in. So you're going to turn it on to a low, and then you're going to pour the water in very slowly. what you're starting to see is you're going to start to see dough just start to come off the edges. And as soon as all your water is in and you see that, you need to stop immediately. You don't want the dough to continue to mix. Boom, that's it. You almost could hear it at the point to where the dough was made. So I'll show you there. So it's not even, it's a little lumpy, but that's what we want, because remember, we don't want all that butter and shortening to be completely mixed in. All right, so let me move the machine out of the way, okay? And not on the counter, remember? We're gonna take some plastic wrap, but I am gonna dump it out first on a piece of parchment, okay? To get the dough out. And remember, it's not a knife, it's just the plastic blade, so you should be okay. Get out whatever's in the bottom. Okay. Get whatever you can off your dough. All right, now I'm just gonna take this really quickly and bring it together. Kind of form a log, not a ball, but more of a log, because we need to divide it. So I want to just bring it together. And this time, instead of dividing it directly in half, which would be about there, you want to go just slightly more. You want your bottom crust to be a little bit bigger than your top. So that's about half. I'm going to say this side's actually even a little smaller. I could even do it by weight. This side's definitely bigger. So that's going to be my bottom, and then the rest is going to go to my top. All right, now you're going to take your plastic, and now you're going to form it into that disc. So flatten it out and just bring up the sides. Wrap it really tight, okay? Plastic wrap right on the surface, flatten it out. Okay, wrap it, and then again, shape it to that disc and flatten it out. One more. Okay, so this is my top, that was my bottom. I'm even gonna, you know what? I'm gonna mark it with a B so that I know that's the bottom. Okay, push it to a disc, flatten it out, and make sure it's really wrapped tight. Now, you can make your dough day ahead. Put it into the refrigerator. Dough needs to go in at least 30 minutes, okay? So while my dough is resting and back into the refrigerator, I'm gonna put a T on the top. Okay, so I have my bottom, and I have my top. I'm going to go ahead and put these in the refrigerator. Now, while these are chilling, I'm going to go ahead and make the apple pie filling. Now, you can even do that the day ahead and then make your pie another day. So our pie dough is in the refrigerator. So while that is chilling, let's go ahead and move into our apples. So I have everything measured out, and you guys will actually have everything together. So this is the 2 tablespoons of sugar, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, and all of the spices will be together in one container. You'll have a mixture. I know the recipe says 5 green, 5 red. It worked out. I think I have a little bit more green than I do red apples, so that's okay. I like the tartness on it. You might want to test your pie, your filling, and we'll talk about that later and adjust it. So find the largest pot you have. This is my large saute, and I've gone ahead and put in those 4 tablespoons of butter, and I'm gonna go ahead and start to heat that up, that pan, because we know that apples will bruise quickly, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead, and you wanna just peel your apples. Now, if you happen to have a couple bad spots, don't freak out over it. We're just gonna go ahead and cut them away. Now you have the option here of whether you want to slice or you want to dice your apples. If you're going to dice, don't dice them really small. I would keep them to the larger side. So remember when you go to core, so I've peeled it, okay? To core the apple, you just want to cut square right around the apple, okay? That becomes your core, which is garbage. You can eat it. Now you have these flat pieces. Now you can either dice or slice, like I said. I keep them about 1/4 inch thick, okay? If you're gonna dice, I would go a little bit bigger. We're gonna pre-cook the filling, so that way what happens is you've ever had a pie or seen someone make a pie and it's flat and it has that beautiful dome top to it, and then when you cut it, the crust is like up here and then there's a big air gap between it and the filling. It's because the filling cooks down and then what's left is that air pocket. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and, like I said, we're going to pre-cook our filling and we're going to let it chill down just a little bit. So continue to peel all 10 of those apples, slice them or dice them, and start putting them in that pan with the hot butter. And I'm going to continue, and I'll come back when I have my last one almost done. I'm on my final apple, and I thought I'd show you my little trick really quick on how to peel apples really fast, because you are doing 10 of them. Now, some of my reds were a little banged up, a little bruised. Again, cut it, cut away the bad, just deal with it. It's 10 apples. You're going to have more than enough filling. You know, if you're down and you only have 9, don't feel like you need to go to the store to buy that 10th apple. So what I want to show you is I removed the stem, so I just twisted it until that came off. Again, I always tell you these are my favorite peelers. I'm going to show you why. So what I do is I kind of twist the apple and I take my peeler and I take one round right off the top. Flip it around and I do the same thing to the bottom. Just kind of do little flat. And what that does is it gives you 2 bare spots to connect. So I go from top to bottom or bottom to top and I just go around the apple and connect those 2 spots just in rotation, and I kind of leave my thumb down on the bottom and I just peel it all the way through. Again, you can see a couple little banged up spots. I'm not going to worry about it. It's not rotten. It's just because it's been through shipping, got a little banged up. Cut through the core. Done. Okay, take your pieces. Slice it up. Okay, there's my last apple. All right, let's go over to the stove. And I want to show you, okay, so here's my last apple going in. You can see you need a big pot, okay? So as I was cutting, instead of it piling up on my cutting board and getting brown, I took it over here, put it on the stove, and it's just on a nice low. I'm going to turn it up a little bit. But go in here, you can see all that butter's on the bottom. And what you want to do is go ahead and start to cook these apples just until they're starting to get soft. Okay, so I just kind of want everything. Now I'm going to tell you, the reason I do red and green, the green hold their texture more when they get cooked. A green apple is funny. A green apple won't turn brown as quickly as a red apple. So if you slice an apple in half, left them both out on the counter, your green one is going to stay more of its natural color longer than the red without putting any lemon juice or anything on it. So, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So go ahead and let this caramelize up. Again, some of those red are starting to break down. And then what I'm going to add in a little bit is, again, all these sugars. So we're going to let these caramelize and get a little bit It's been about another 5 minutes of cooking those apples, and I'm going to tell you, like, the red ones are starting to really break down. So what I like about that is that they're going to kind of fill in some of the spaces with the apples. So I'm gonna add now all my sugar and my brown sugar and all my spices, and go ahead now and mix that up. Make sure the brown sugar gets good and dissolved and all of the apples get nicely coated. So if we were in school, this actually would have been a 3-day lab. So we would have made the dough on Monday. The next day, we would have made the filling, because it would have taken a lot of time for you guys to peel the apples, and then you want to bake the filling, and then you want to chill it. And then the last day, which would be part 3 of this video, is we're going to roll out the dough, and I'm going to show you how to do the lattice top. So this is the filling. Now what I want you to do is, because we can't adjust anything once the pie is made, is taste your apples. Okay? Taste them to see, because you have a lot of green. There is a lot of tart. I can see a lot of them still don't have any sugar on them. Is taste one and see if you feel you need some more sugar, maybe a little bit more cinnamon. Should taste like, it should hit you in the back of the mouth just a little bit, but then you get a little bit of sweetness and you can taste that cinnamon. I think it's perfect, honestly. So, turn the heat off. And what I'm going to do is, you can either let them chill in here for just a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and transfer them. Let's move around this way. I'm going to transfer them all into a metal bowl. Don't go into plastic. It's too hot. But I'm going to get everything I can out of there. Okay. And let this mixture, I'm going to kind of put it up the sides a little bit just to give it some air. And this needs to chill, so that bowl's hot. Needs to come down, maybe sit at room temperature for like an hour. And then you can cover it, put it in the refrigerator, and make your dough again on the day 3, or let it come to room temperature and just continue on, and we'll start to roll out our pie dough. So we're back. It's part 3, and we have refrigerated our dough. My pie filling is in the refrigerator. I'm going to tell you it's actually been a couple days. So I let my pie dough come up to, it's still cold, but I let it sit out for about an hour, hour and a half before I roll, because we don't want it to crack, but we still want it pretty chilled. So I'm going to go ahead, this is the top. I'm going to start with the bottom dough, and we're going to go ahead and just do a quick lesson again on rolling them out. Now remember, we want to use as little flour as possible, and we also made, remember, that bottom dough a little thicker than, or a little more dough than the top. So we'll come in here, again, lightly do it. And remember, always from the middle out. And it's going to take a little bit of time. Don't try to force it. Spin it. And we're looking for the dough to be about a little less than 1/4 of an inch. Not too thin, but we don't really want thick pie dough. Then it won't cook. It would be a little raw. Remember, we're really going to just try to cook that pastry dough because our apples are already cooked. So again, remember, each time kind of flip it, start moving it around. Try not to use too much flour. If you guys have one of those baking mats at home, or if you have some parchment, you can even go ahead and roll in between those 2 parchment sheets, and then you would not need any flour at all. I'm going to check this. I'm almost there. I can see it's almost not moving either. So again, I'm a little thick over here. but I'm pretty good on this side. I'm gonna flip it one more time. I'm gonna go a little bit over here, a little wider. We're gonna have some extra dough, but that's okay. All right, so take your pie pan. Now remember, it can be, I'm gonna use glass because I always like to be able to check the bottom. It can be a deep dish, and then your crust would kind of lay more flat. If you're gonna use and you need one of the foil disposable pans, your pie might be a little bit higher. So again, I'm just checking that I have enough room to go around, and I do. So I'm gonna take my rolling pin, and I'm gonna go ahead and roll my dough right up and on it, and then put my pie pan down and gently roll it in. Now remember, don't just push the dough into the pan, okay? We need to kind of lift it and allow it to fill the airspace on the bottom. So lift and push. So push it down in the middle first, make sure it sticks. Then go around each of your corners, lift it and push it in. We don't want to stretch the dough. And then go up around your sides. Now, we don't want to trim it too much, but we do need to trim it. So, let me find, I have a pair, you could either use a knife, and I actually have a pair of shears, kitchen shears. And what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna go around and leave just about 1/4 of an inch all the way around. So a little longer than the pie. It's hanging over a little bit. And the reason is because we're going to be doing 2 crusts that we're going to have to meet right here on this edge. And we really don't want too much dough, but we do need enough dough that we can seal it and make sure everything stays in. Okay, so keep this dough. You can always roll it, make a little arugula, or I'll show you we can do some leaves, some decorations for the top, or if the top tends to be a little too short, I'll wrap it up. We can use it for that. All right, so bottom's done. Let's grab our pie filling now. And I'm going to, let me wipe up some of this flour really quick, even though we are going to have to roll that top in just a second. I'm just going to move some of this. Okay. I also suggest you can go ahead and preheat if you're going to bake it right now to 350. And then I would also make sure you're going to bake it on a parchment lined or foil lined half sheet pan of some sort, because you will still get some juices. So like I said, I made my dough and my filling on the same day, and I refrigerated it. And then I just got a little too busy. I had some other demos, and so it's been a few days since I've done my filling. So it chilled down really nice. So I'm gonna go ahead now. I'm gonna put all my apples in my pan, and I'm gonna go ahead and push them around just a little bit to kind of start a layer. Make sure there's no air holes. Let's do the second one. All right, a little bit more. Okay, so you can see they did kind of shrink a little bit after a couple days. and softened, but I'll still have a nice little layer on the top. All right, so I'm just gonna push this off to the side until we go ahead, and now we wanna roll our top layer. And we're going to do what's called that lattice top. So I'm gonna go ahead and roll this out again, just like I did the bottom. And then I'm gonna show you how to cut the lattice. All right, so we've rolled out that bottom dough, and it is, I'm just gonna double check that it's not sticking anywhere. And what we're gonna go ahead and do is make the lattice. And so what the lattice is kind of it's called a basket weave as well. So you want to find either your pizza cutter or some sort of straight edge. I'm deciding on whether, I happen to have this little pastry cutter that does different designs on it. This one is a kind of like, it looks like a ravioli. I think I'm going to go with just my basic straight cut for my apple pie. So I'm going to use this tool. And if you have a straight edge, you could use that as well. I'm going to go ahead and just free kind of form this one. Now, if I was going to do a berry pie, I would make my strips thinner and make my lattice much tighter. Apple tends to be a little bit wider strip, so I would say maybe around a ½ inch. So I'm just going to start, I'm going to go kind of off to the center first and just go straight up. And then make my next one, again, like I said, about a ½ inch cut. And you're going to do this to the entire bottom, or this is the top crust. And just do, I'm going to make sure I stay as even as possible. And cut as many strips as I possibly can. Okay. That's a little wider. There you go. All right, so let's do one more here. I may not need it, but we'll see. Now, don't worry about your edges. All right, so let's go ahead and get the pie base set up. Bring it back over. All right, let me see if I can slide these. I can't move them. Okay, let me just turn the camera a little bit. There we go. So a lattice is an over-under, like a basket weave. So when I did roll this dough, I was a little bit more square. If you're round, just kind of start with your middle. Now what I like to do is go ahead and do a cross. So one this direction, and then one right over the top of it. And in fact, there's my angle. Okay, so now you're going to go on either side of this one. So this strip here is under, so the next two are going to go on the top. So grab two more strips, and I'm going to go about the same thickness of the strip. I'm going to give it a gap right in the middle. There you go. So I can slide these over a little bit. So now you can see it's under, over, under. Okay, so now we're going to go to the other direction. So because this one goes under, we want it to go over. So you're going to pull this one back, grab one of your longer strips, and lay it down, and lay it back over. Okay, so it's under, over, it needs to go under this one, pull this one back, grab another strip, and back on. Okay, so over, under, over. So now we can go one more each direction. So I'm going to lift now these two, put one underneath, lay it back down. These two needs to go under, lift those two. Nice big one right here. Okay. Now we got 5 strands this way. So if it's under, right, this one is under, so we want it over. So now it's every other one. Lay a strip, flip them back. So you can see with your dough being a little cold in your pie shell, if your pie filling was hot, your dough would be hard to work with. All right, same thing this direction. So this one, and this one, and go back. All right, now you have a little bit more dough. If you want to, you can go a little bit closer. I'm going to try to do it one more time. And it can be even at like a little half strip, because now you're getting really close. And it's all going to get covered up here towards the very end. I'm going to do one here. So it's these two. I need a little longer one. I'm going to go here. Okay, move this over a little bit more. I'm going to do one back here. So it'll be here to here. Broke. Dough's getting plenty long. I'm just going to lay it right on the edge. Just looks like part of the crust. That will be fine. And let's do one more maybe here. Pull just those two up. I'm just going to use this little piece. So I kind of pushed it with those last ones. You don't have to. It makes the weave a little bit. All right. I still have dough. We can decorate, cut some leaves. You can also roll this out, make some chocolate chip arugula. I might do that with mine. I'll show you how to do a little bit of decoration on the top. All right, so now we want to go around the crust. These are really long, so get your scissors out again and just cut them so they're about the same length, just a little bit, not too much. We got plenty of dough here. Got all of them, one more. All right, so now I want you to go around and pinch these two doughs together. So you're now making sure you're kind of creating this little seal. And it should be, your dough will probably be pretty soft by now. So your dough is going to start to be a little bit pliable, but that's okay. We want to now kind of create them as one. All right. Now, if you remember when we did the single crust pie, we tucked them under. We're going to do the opposite. We want to roll them up because I always want to make sure there's enough juice. So I roll it twice and kind of just mold it. Now, you want to roll it enough. Let me see if I do this side. So roll it up so that you can get it right on the inside of your pie plate. If it's too much dough, you can go ahead and just pinch some off because now it's really kind of soft. And I really try to roll it so that that seam kind of gets hidden, but you still want to have a little bit of a crust right there because we want to do the fluting with our fingers still. Okay, but I kind of bring it up and inside the pan. Too much, like I said, maybe pinch it off. If it's not enough, add some of that extra dough in there so that you have yourself a nice little crust. All right, a little bit more. And this pan doesn't have much of an edge on it, so I'm really taking my pie crust to the inside quite a bit. And I'll just try to create the edge. I do have even a deep dish, so if you wanted to do more apples and have a really big filling, you could do a deep dish. Mine's clay. But see, we've got that edge all in. And you definitely want it to the inside. We don't want it to fall out or right on the very top of it. And I'm just kind of making sure it looks sealed. If it's too much on one part, like I said, just pinch it off. Okay? So I want to go in. So we've rolled all the edges in. And now I'm going to go around, like I said, with a thumb, a finger. If you want to do a fork, you could do that as well. I like to do my apple pie really thin and get it really up there, kind of a nice little fluted edge. And again, the little bit higher if you're going to have a little bit of juices that are going to come out. So I'm just going to go around. Remember, it's pinching, pushing, and it's pushing those two doughs together, and then you put your thumb back in the same hole that your other finger was in. That way you keep your spacing even all the way around. Almost done. All right, then we're going to want to do a little bit of a wash on this. So it could be egg, it could be, I have some cream that I'm going to do. So I'm going to get that out, going to brush the top of it, do a milk or cream wash on it, sprinkle it with some sugar. And then what you can do is you can take some of your little leftover dough and you can even roll a few little dough balls. And you can decorate the very center if you'd like. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that part going and I'll show you how to finish decorating it. All right, so I cut my leaves and what I'm doing around now is just going on. I have some heavy cream and I'm just giving the pie a light wash all the way down. And again, that's gonna help when we sprinkle some of that granulated sugar onto the top of it. And it's gonna give it a really pretty golden brown color. Now, if you're not ready to bake it or you wanna bake it the day before Thanksgiving, maybe you prep your pies and everything a few days before. I would definitely bake it the day before Thanksgiving, not the day of. Take your pie at this point and put it in the freezer. Wrap it really tight with some plastic wrap. Keep it in the freezer. Pull it out about an hour or just as you're heating up that oven and go ahead and bake it even frozen. It will take just a little bit longer, but it's gonna be a really nice golden brown pie, and then it can sit out at room temperature for a day. Okay, so we've got milk all over it. I'm just going to clean up my outside edge a little bit. And then I don't have any raw sugar. I have just regular granulated sugar. I'm going to give it a nice layer all the way around. Okay. And then I made a few leaves. What I did is I just rolled it flat and then just cut them. And then I'm going to score them just to kind of look like some autumn leaves. Okay. And I am going to put 3 right in the middle. So score them and then give those little veins that come up on leaves. Couple of those. So do Everything's always better in odds when you're decorating. So 3 leaves right there in the middle. And I'm not going to wash them. I'm going to have them be just a little bit different. You could even put a little bit of food coloring in here if you wanted to kind of make them even look like red berries. It kind of looks almost like a cherry pie, but I am going to give it a little bit of milk just to kind of make these little berries stick. And that's going to be it. So this pie will go into the oven. Again, that's 350 degrees. I'm going to say let's check it at 45. You're looking for it to be golden brown. And there it is, right there, those little flowers. All right, I'll show you the finished piece.